Hey, welcome to another episode of Black Wealthy and Wise, the number one podcast for helping Black families escape financial slavery and create financial freedom so they can live their best life and leave a legacy for their family. And today, guys, we're going to be talking about the mental aspect of building wealth. So I have a really good friend of mine here today. I'm going to let him introduce himself. Yeah, let's go ahead and get started.
How you doing, Alex, man? First of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me onto your podcast. I'm an
Appreciate you, man.
Avid watcher, and I love the growth that you got going on, man. It's some good stuff, man.
I sure appreciate it,
So
man. Thank you.
All that said, I am Sean Washington, clinical psychotherapist. I work at a clinic called Anderson Counseling and Consulting, and I work with different people on their issues of depression, anxiety. COVID has been a big factor in a lot of people's anxiety and depression. Transitions in life. A lot of people left their job, lost their job. But that's pretty much what I do.
Okay, so that's the reason. Well, that's really the reason why I wanted to be able to get Sean in on this, because he is someone who counsels people from a mental health perspective, and is helping us to get a better understanding of who we are, how our upbringing has led to us being the people we are, our thought processes, and in particular, our relationship with money. So let me ask you, what do you think when it comes to building wealth? How much of your mental background, thinking and programming, how does that affect your ability to build wealth?
Tremendously, because it's generational, right? We're 2, maybe 3 generations off from slavery. And understanding that we've gone through the crack era, we've gone through welfare state, we've gone through a lot of states in the Black community. And so psychologically, I think we're finally at a point where we are wanting wealth. I think we're probably going towards trying to be rich instead of wealthy. And I think that entrepreneurship is something that has been growing in a lot of the word in the Black community. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, own their own business. Mm-hmm. And so I think the idea is great. I think maybe some of the methods that they go, it's a lot of habits that as Black folk that we have that we carry into these businesses. And
like what?
Well, poor systems, right? We don't put things together well a lot of times. We start businesses. Give you an example. I was talking to a guy one day when we were talking about, he said he needed $100,000 to start his business. And I said, what made you think you need $100,000? He said, well, I need it for the building. I needed this, that, and other. But he didn't say anything about having any money to close the business if he needed to. He didn't talk about, he pretty much had a mentality of I'll build it and they'll come. And unfortunately, with Black business, a lot of times that is the notion, and usually is grand opening, grand closing with that. Mm-hmm. Because if you think you need 100,000, you really need 200,000, mm-hmm. right? To be prepared, mm-hmm. For the worst, the best. If you have to be in business for a year, you may not get paid for a year.
So when it comes to, we'll say just African Americans, Black people in general, do you think we have a really good understanding of what wealth even is?
No. The short answer. The short answer is no. I'll say that because our wealth is shown on social media and on TV. Right? Our wealth is based on things, materialistic things, monetary things, and not based on a mindset. So I'll give you an example, going back to the mental health piece, right? My grandmother didn't own a house. My mother didn't own a house. Not my per se, but this is the mindset. But I want to own a house. Well, who's going to teach you how to get a house? Your grandmother didn't own a house. You didn't own a house. And so unless you have a need to learn that financial awareness, that financial literacy, understand how banking works, understanding how a loan works, and not have this mentality of get the bag, a lot of our ideas of what wealth is what we see other people have.
Right. I definitely agree with that. So if you one of the reasons why I wanted to start Black Wealthy and Wise podcast was I wanted to give people who may not have even seen up close people who have been successful in their careers or who have been able to somewhat build wealth for themselves and for their family. So I wanted to be able to provide some examples of people who have done that. So let's say, for instance, that a person didn't grow up with wealthy parents. Parents didn't teach us how to build wealth. We didn't grow up in a wealthy community. What are we supposed to be doing now?
Looking for a mentor.
Mm.
Need to find a mentor. A lot of times when people think of mentor, they think about young kids or children or teenagers. But even as an adult, you need a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
You need somebody who already did it. There's no need to recreate the wheel.
Right.
Right. Somebody who's already done it, somebody who already understands it, and someone that actually take you to the full process. A lot of times we, like I said, going back to social media and television, we see the result, but we don't see the process. And a lot of times people don't want to go through the process, but having a mentor over a period of time. And then the other part is we're going to need patience. A lot of us don't have a lot of patience because once again, we're in the get the bag mentality. We want everything quick, microwave. And so we can't, if it ain't a quick hustle. I'll give you an example, the stuff that's going on with cryptocurrency right now. A lot of people jump into cryptocurrency. Why? Because it's a quick hustle. Let's get the money, get the bag.
It's the new thing.
It's
sexy.
But interesting enough, like I was telling people, like I got into cryptocurrency like 15 years ago. I remember having Bitcoin and I didn't even know what it was, but a friend of mine put me on it and I bought it. I wish I would have kept it. I would have been a multi-millionaire right now. But at the same time, we're always late. We're always behind. And I'm not saying that it's not a good time to get in. That's your choice, or whether you want to make those decisions. But we're always late. By the time usually when Black people get involved, whether it's real estate, stocks, cryptocurrency, whatever, we're usually at the tail end of it. And the people that started it usually already got their money out of it. Right. We're usually we're getting the crumbs.
Man, I got to get it out the mud, man. I got to get out the mud, dog.
What's that,
man? And ain't nobody helped me with X, Y. Ain't nobody taught me how to do such and such. Ain't nobody gave me a leg up. Hey, I got to get it out the mud. What do you think about that from a mental health perspective?
Well, I don't like mud, right? What's mud? It's dirt and water, right? Normally when I get mud on me, I want to take a shower.
That's all we got, me. Right. CMB, that's all we got.
Right. So I think for me, once again, when I think of mud, when I think of water and mud, water and sand and mud, I think about what process did you go to have to? Why did you have to come out the mud? Where's the cognitive ability to think, maybe I just need to get me someone who can help me do what I want to do? Why do I have to wait till I'm in the mud? Why, where was the drive? Like a lot of times when people say that, like I always give the example of grinding, right? Back in the day, everybody said, I'm grinding.
Hustle,
I used to ask people, I said, you ever seen a drill bit? They said, yeah. I said, you got a diamond drill bit, right? And you drill. So what a drill bit does, it grinds, right? But if it finds a surface that it can't really get through, you'll mess up the bit and you'll keep grinding. I always tell people, if a year from now you're still grinding, 2 years from now you're still grinding, you probably want to stop. Because you're not supposed to grind for 4 or 5 years. You talk to somebody year 1 and then year 5 and they still grinding. No, you're not supposed to still be grinding. Yeah. This is you need to figure out some other things. And so going back to what you said about with the mud and all those things, it's one of those things that I find that a lot of times Black folk do not make change unless it's a mud situation. Right? Which is what puts us behind. But to our credit, it has a lot to do with white supremacy. It has a lot to do with the way the system is designed in the sense of, and frankly, ourselves. We don't share with each other. Right? We don't share with each other, right?
I agree.
And I think we're starting to get to a point where we are sharing, but that is like kind of recently.
Yeah.
But prior to like the last couple of years, man, we haven't been sharing information.
Yeah.
And as a result, I think that we're going in a good direction, but because we don't share information and we get bits and pieces, it's like telling a story, a narrative, and you telling somebody the beginning and the end, but you don't tell them the feeling, and then they have no idea what's going on. But they'll go through the motions of doing it and then fail and then be mad.
Yeah. And it's something that you said earlier. I think that so many of us, that whole pioneer maverick story that's been told throughout history, throughout, in movies and whatnot, it romanticizes the idea of the person, being the lone pioneer, the lone maverick that created success all by themselves. Absolutely. I conquered everything and I was able, and I think we bought into that, that belief, not realizing, not understanding, like you said, all you're seeing now is somebody's glamorized version of the success they've gotten. You don't see all the other failures that they've had. You don't see the other people behind the scenes that helped them get to X, Y, and Z, or how many times they may have gone bankrupt, or somebody who secretly helped them actually get to the place where we don't get the full story.
So with that said, I'll share with you what I see clinically a lot of times. So you have a client that says, hey, I want to own my own business, this, that, and the other. And, I said, okay, how can I help you, get those pieces together, get you some community resources to help you do that. Oh, now I got it. I'm going to rely on God. I'm like, okay, all right, you're going to rely on God. And of course, no judgment there. Okay, that's fine. Okay, now what did God tell you? Did God tell you to do that business plan? Well, I ain't got no business plan. Well, I wrote it down. Okay, you wrote it down, but I mean, you got to have a business plan. I said, how are you going to get your financing for it? They said, well, I'm just going to have the faith of God and the mustard seed. That's okay. Wait a minute, hold on, stop. I said, there's a order and operations to everything. You got to have a business plan and you got to have a budget, because when you go to the bank, they're going to base it on that. The other thing is, how is your credit? Because initially when you start a business, you have to have good credit yourself, because the credit is going to be based on you. There's a lot of misconceptions about starting business. And so going back to talking about wealth and generational wealth, there's a lot of steps that are missed. And so as a result, that's why we could fail. And then you have a lot of broken dreams as a result, And so and a lot of times, so I've actually had clients quit their jobs in the pursuit of happiness, of course, but in the pursuit of opening their own business, but have no tutelage, no education, but they got bits and pieces, right? And then when I ask them, where you get your education from? Oh, I saw it on YouTube, or my friend, she owns a nail salon, or my other girlfriend, she does lingerie online, and she makes this and makes that. I said, well, is she mentoring you? And she's like, no. I said, well, why don't you ask her to mentor you? Well, she ain't got time. Okay, well, you might not want to start this until then. Now, this is how this impacts your mental health. So a lot of people who start businesses, they're not financially secure. When you're not financially secure, it affects your mental health.
How so?
Depression, anger, sadness, frustration, all these things, stress,
absolutely,
health. All these things come into play, and the idea I want to eat, because you quit your job. You quit your job willy-nilly and say, I'm gonna quit my job and start this business, and I'm gonna have faith that I can do it. Well, faith without works is dead. You have to. There's some planning in place, and so I've actually been blessed enough to have some clients where I got them before they quit, and I said, hey, before you quit, let's make some steps. Let me put you with an Alex Jones. Let me put you with a couple of people that can maybe help you get a better plan for what you're doing. And then once again, as therapists, we are neutral. Okay. We don't have a dog in a fight, but our concept is to get you where you want to be. Right. So if you come to me and you tell me I want to be successful, I want my mental health to be in place, I want my health to be in place. When I tell you these things to do, you're going to have to trust me, because this is how you do it.
Yeah.
Now, if you try to deviate from that and do your own plan and it fails, you can blame nobody but yourself.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. What is it that prevents so many of us from asking for help, guidance, or assistance?
The number one killer of Black folk: pride.
What?
It's not cancer. It's not by diabetes. It is pride.
What?
Pride. Pride will kill you. Pride is attached to so many different things in the brain. Pride will have people becoming so grandiose where they will portray that they're one way in order to get the results of another way and then end up in the end losing everything. You know, pride will kill you.
It will.
It will kill you. And so pride is a big issue. But humility is a cure.
Okay.
Humility is the cure.
So how do you is it because you talked about mud can hurt you. Mud can also help you if you find yourself in a situation where I didn't hit rock bottom. So how do you help someone go from ego, pride? Does it have to be a rock bottom?
It doesn't it doesn't have to be, but unfortunately by the time they come to me, it is. Okay. Because that's just the way we are. Not all of us. Not all of us.
Yeah.
And so you asked how I deal with it from a standpoint what I call facts over feelings.
Say that again.
Facts over feelings.
Like
right?
that.
And what I mean by that is let's deal with the facts. Let's deal with what you have, what you do not have. Let's deal with what you know and what you really don't know. And let's talk about how we can get you so you can know. There's nothing wrong with being wrong, but you need to don't be wrong again.
Yeah.
Get the knowledge, get the knowledge that you need so you won't continue to be wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and so you know, I know in a lot of my sessions, I have several books that I give. And I work with a lot more men than women, but I work with women as well. But I work with a lot of men. And 3 books that I give the men throughout a period of time of the sessions, I give them 3 books. One is the 4 Agreements.
4 Agreements?
Yeah. 2 is The Purpose and Power, Understanding the Purpose and Power of Men by Dr. Miles Monroe.
Understanding? Hopefully I'll put them in. I'll make sure to put them in the show notes so you guys can make sure you get them. Okay.
And number 3 is The Superior Man.
Superior Man.
And the reason is this. The 4 Agreements deals with the cognitive issues that people have about taking things personal, being their best. And so it breaks down all those things, right? Understanding the purpose and power of men, when it deals with men, it breaks down every faction of our life, from sex to money to family to childhood to trauma in childhood, all these things, right? From a spiritual standpoint. And then the ways of superior man addresses our masculinity and our manhood and how we should address ourselves and address our women. Okay. So those 3 books, if you read those 3 books, you'll pretty much be where you need to be.
Gotcha. Good. Those are good suggestions. One of the things that we do know, we know that many of us don't necessarily have the background. We don't necessarily have those people around us who can show us the way, readily available to us. So we know we have to seek out some mentors and other people, right? So how do we deal with the social construct that's out there? How do we deal with society? How do we deal with the structure that we're in on our way to building wealth?
Know thyself. And what I mean by that is the better you know you, the better off you are. The way you deal with society, and I always tell people you're either going to be the master or the slave. Okay. I used to tell my daughter the same thing. Make a choice. And it's fine. Whatever one you choose, master or slave, but you're going to have to choose which one you want to be. And so I say that is you have to address your issues, address your ills, and be confident in who you are, how you look, how you approach situations, all these things. And then what happens is the world can't influence you.
Right.
right? You know, me and you talk all the time. I call it the matrix.
Yeah.
You know, you got to you got to unplug out of the matrix.
Yeah.
You know, the Matrix was one of my favorite movies and still is to this day because it exemplifies exactly what's going on now.
Yeah.
You're going to have to unplug from social media, from TV, and read. You know, I had a conversation with a friend of ours, Jackson. I told him, I said, I don't argue with people that don't read. And he said, why? I said, because it becomes a circular conversation. You know, if you don't read, and I always ask, I get in a confrontation with someone, and I always tell people, I love confrontation in the face of resolution, right? But if it's not no resolution, then I don't want to. I'm not with that. So, but I always tell people, you know, when it comes down to it, you have to be intentional in your reading and your understanding of knowledge. So when you have these conversations, these debates, people can't tell you what it is. You already know what it is. Meaning this, the more knowledgeable you are, the world can't tell you what you are. You know what you are. You can't tell you where you come from. Can't tell you your lack of this or lack of that. And once again, coupled what I told you earlier, the humility. The humility to say, you know what? Hey, man, I appreciate that. I didn't know that. Can I write that? That's another thing Black folk don't do. We don't write stuff down. I mean, we got dumb people got smartphones, right? So dumb people have smartphones, right? So I always tell people, hey, put it in the smartphone. If you ain't that smart, it's okay. Put it in the smartphone. Put it in the smartphone. Keep it for later. Go look it up.
Go look it up.
You know, go look it up. You know, we are plagued by our own ignorance.
Man, I mean, you. So just know, guys, this, you know, we're going to be having these conversations. So this won't be the last episode, trust me, because there's just so much to unpack. There's so much to really talk about. And so how do you help someone deal with disappointment or failure or rejection?
Well, okay. You're talking about a lot of different things. So when you threw rejection in there, and you threw, what was the other thing?
Failure and disappointment. So we'll say failure and disappointment. Are they a little bit closer?
No, because they're at two opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Failure is the result of.
Okay.
And disappointment is the end part of the failure.
I got you.
Right. So you got to deal with one before you deal with the other. So you deal with the failure first.
But I told you we got some. Yeah. Well, man, we got real therapists on this thing, man.
So this is the thing. First of all, you have to deal with the failure by saying, was it really a failure? It may not have been a failure. Everybody looks at failure differently, right? But the appropriate way to look at a failure is to look at, once again, here we go back to facts over feelings.
I like that.
Was my failure because of me? Was my failure because of my lack of information? My lack of intention on getting the information I needed? Why was my failure? Was it because of greed? Did I go after the money and not after creating or building the business or whatever it may be?
Right.
And so now the disappointment, you deal with the disappointment, but once you deal with the failure and the facts over the feelings of I'm getting lost. The facts over feelings when it comes to the failure.
Yeah.
Right. The disappointment is not as bad.
Right.
Because now you understand, oh, I didn't fail because I'm just a failure. I failed because I should have took these other two steps. Had I taken these other steps, I wasn't a failure.
Right.
So now my disappointment shrinks. Okay. My disappointment shrinks because what happens is now I know why I failed.
Yeah.
So then it's up to you. When I work with my clients, we work together. Like I said, it's a symbiote relationships. It's very, very, I'm therapeutic for them. They're therapeutic for me. But, and so we work together to say, okay, well, how can we not do it again? And how can we win from it?
Yeah.
You know, it's an experience, right? And you're going to have many, many, many failures in your life, right? But the more failures that you have that are not because of your lack of, the less the disappointment. Because then you'll be able to look at it as, okay, I learned something from this.
Right.
You know?
And you made a very valid point, because failure is really how you define it, because somebody you might have a person who says, "Yo, I hit $100 million this year." Elon Musk might look at it and say, "That's a bust."
Right.
So, I mean, it really does come down to how you define it. How do you look at it? How do you process it?
Right.
And begin to break down, what either led to. I really look at it as: are you getting the results that you truly hoped for, planned for, and worked towards?
And as well, is the outcome maximized?
Right.
Did you maximize the outcome?
Exactly.
Yeah, if you maximize the outcome, did you set out to do what you were supposed to do? Is your failure, is it a partial failure?
Right. So given that, is wealth something that we truly can have?
We talked about this earlier. That's a trick question. That's a trick question. And I'll say this to you. The short answer, yes. The short answer, yes. We can have it, but it's going to take a lot of moving parts. It's a lot of moving parts. I say this, I tell people all the time, when it comes to wealth, you get with the people that want to be wealthy like you want to be wealthy, have the ideals, have done the study, have done the research, the readings, and you get with those people. You can't save the world. I always tell people, I can't save the world, but I can save my little corner of it.
Sure.
And so I tell people all the time, if you start from your corner of the world, maybe they become infectious for the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. But I think as a collective, slavery was a hell of a drug.
It was.
Slavery was a hell of a drug, and
it was.
It did a job on us that is just it's a continuous flow, and unfortunately, because of that, it stops us. Because the number one issue in our community is trust.
True.
It's trust.
True.
That's our biggest issue.
Yep. Because like you said, if we can get to a place where we can begin to trust each other, trust ourselves, then we're really in a place now where we can really begin to work together,
right,
to begin to have some, to make a difference, to make some strides into, trying to achieve what we want to achieve. And I always say, any worthwhile goal that you want to have, it really is going to take the cooperation or the help of some other people.
Absolutely.
If it's going to be something big, worthy, and worthwhile.
I tell people all the time, don't do anything by yourself if you don't have to.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's one person or three people.
I agree.
But I mean, and when you talked about failures, I mean, would you want to fail by yourself or fail with three other people? Where, put this way, do you want to when you lose big, you want to lose marginal?
Right. Exactly.
Exactly.
So, and especially once you start getting to the place where, you are, roughly around, our age,
right.
You want to be able to make sure that the risk you take, you still want to take risk, because without risk, there's no reward.
Right.
But you want to make sure that you don't take on unnecessary risk.
Well, I think you said it one time. I think it's more about calculated risk.
Correct.
Calculated risk.
Right.
I think calculated risk is fine, but you have to, once again, you've had to do the research and the reading and the mentoring, being a mentor and all these things. Absolutely. In order to make those calculated risks.
Absolutely.
So,
I remain optimistic. I'm always hopeful.
Absolutely.
I'm always excited about the possibilities. And so, that's obviously the reason why, I reach out to people such as yourself who can help us understand ourselves better, understand the situations we find ourselves in. How do we begin to respond to them as opposed to reacting?
Right.
We do a lot of reacting.
But that's because of a lack of coping skills. So,
correct.
Like I said, we would have to have like 2 or 3 of these to really break. And like I said, a lot of things I'm telling you, I'm speaking on generalities.
Right.
But be honest with you, there's so much more that goes into therapy and processing with clients and getting them to those places that we talked about. It's a lot more that goes into that. But one thing I can say this, The beautiful thing about therapy is that people come to you for help. So they're more open than someone on the street.
Right.
And so when someone comes to you and they're pouring out to you, these are people that sometimes have attitude issues and all these things, but when they come to you, they are at their most humble point. And so because they come with that humility, it makes it very, very easy to help them.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Washington, Sean, are there some I call them 1, 2, 3s or some takeaways, some things that that we can kind of consider and think about as it relates to our lives and how to be more fruitful and more successful?
I'll tell you this. It's something that I teach in my clients in therapy. And it goes like this. You have requirements, expectations, and accountability. And you can use this in any relationship. My requirement is what I set forth to say, this is who I am and how I am, and this is how I operate.
Mm.
The expectation is that because you either love me or you have respect for me, that you will allow me to carry this out and you will respect the relationship between us. The accountability is that if you fail on these two things, I can no longer be attached to you. Mm. So requirements, expectations, and accountability.
I like that. Man. Well, this pretty much concludes today's episode. Again, I'm gonna have Sean here, and we're gonna talk more about lots of obstacles, lots of roadblocks, and lots of things that we find ourselves facing on our way to us creating a life that we truly want to live. And so I'd love to hear from you. What are some of the takeaways you got from today's episode? What are some things that you might want to have us come back and talk about in future episodes? I'd love to hear it. And of course, I'm going to link down below in the show notes. I'm going to link the 3 books that Sean talked about as well. So, hey, thank you guys for joining me for today's episode. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'd love to hear from you. All right.
And I want to say, Alex, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Man, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate it. Man.
Hey, thank you
so much.
Hey, all right, guys. We're going to see you on the next episode. Take care. God bless. See you next time.